Basically, putting in 10 minutes a day for a week gets you 70 minutes of paint time.
I should do that. Welcome back to the Romans Festival. Big Mek here, and that's right. I am going to eat my words and actually do what I tell you to do to see if it works. Let's give it a try. Yeah, so for those of you that missed it, a little bit of time ago now, by the time you're watching this, I did a video on 5 roadblocks to getting your Warhammer 40,000 or other Games Workshop armies done, and 5 ways you can, get over it to get through those roadblocks. And the number one thing I had was on time. The premise is, very, very simple. When you are working on painting your army, when you are thinking about painting things, we tend to think about very large chunks of time. Being able to do an hour, a couple hours, or maybe even a whole day to devote to the hobby. You get into a rhythm, you get into a flow, right? There's definitely something to be said for that. But the problem becomes if you're very busy or just have a regular life, having things like a job or going to school or raising a family or whatnot, finding time in those kind of chunks is very difficult. So the bypass to the roadblock, the way to get through it, was to devote 10 minutes a day. Because if you could devote 10 minutes per day, which seems on the surface to be relatively easy, at least compared to getting an hour a week, you would have 70 minutes at the end of your week instead of 60 minutes if you found an hour once. So I'm going to put my teeth where my mouth is. They're already in there. My money where my mouth is. You know what I'm talking about. And actually try painting 10 full minutes every single day, 7 days in a row. And let's see just what happens. So off to the painting desk. All right, here is the model we are starting with. This is the Beast Boss on foot, as found in the new combat patrol for the orcs in Warhammer 40k. And you can see he has had some work done already. We've got a Zenithal primer undercoat, we've got a little bit of metal on there, and some leathers and skin and stuff, but we are by no means done with this thing. So let's put 10 minutes on the clock and pick up our brushes. We are going to make use of quick painting things such as contrast paint here because that is the type of model we are doing. Now you'll notice that my Zenithal undercoat primer is not black and white or black and gray. It is actually black and red oxide primer, which is my preferred undercoat, especially on orcs. I've done a number of videos on this. It provides a nice warm undertone, gives you more contrast, and you can dry brush a light gray or a pale tan on top of that to get the whiter gradients and get a 3-color gradient going and add some warmth to your paint jobs. It also helps immensely with rust and metal and things of that nature. Alright, we're going to switch gears from contrast paints to Tamiya with some X6 orange. That is time. All right, no cheating the clock. That was time, 10 minutes, even though we were just started a new color. We are not able to keep going on it, so it was pencils down, and there we are. So we did get the fur color here, up here with the Agaros Dunes. We got the blue on the hair, we got the red on the squig, and some of the blood effects, as well as the eyes and the mouth, and a little bit of orange on them. So actually pretty good progress for the first 10 minutes. All right, we'll check in again tomorrow. It is the start of day 2 now, again working on our beast boss on foot. Now, it's been kind of fun filming this because I have been putting out shorts every single day of my progress and stuff, and the feedback I got on the very first one was, hey, why are you starting on something that's already painted? That's not really going to show us a whole lot. And I was like, well, because the whole point was to get projects done, not start new projects. And this guy has been sitting on my painting desk for months. So let's try to get him done. I've talked in other videos that part of what is making this one not get finished is so many decisions have to be made. So by forcing myself to paint in really short spurts, I have to make those decisions quickly, and it's actually getting more paint on the model and more progress done. Because I mean, look, he's just covered in furs and leathers and spikes and things, and just trying to figure out what color to paint everything was paralyzing. So there's more than just like, can you paint a whole squad in the 10 minutes a day? That's not necessarily what we're asking, right? So let's head on over to the paint desk and put some paint on. It's like I was saying, part of my indecision is just all of the detailing on this guy and figuring out what color to paint everything. This wire back here, you could paint that, you know, the yellow and black for the hazards, or, you know, some crazy color like orange or whatnot, but I just did it in black to go along with the strap that's here and his boot and his belt, and just try to like get as many details as I could with that color while I had it out. I'm realizing that I stopped day 1 on my orange, so I need to get back to my orange. I was foiled again, ending on the orange. I really should start on the orange tomorrow to get these little details all over him to help tie him into my army. But yeah, so basically black and orange today. Kind of disappointing, but you know what? As I zoom back out and look at him for more of a tabletop fight, he's actually starting to kind of look like something that would be in my army for once. It is time for day 3 now, with our little beast boss on foot. And what I'm going to do today is work on doing some highlights to his face and to some of the other parts, maybe do a couple of washes, see what we can do to kind of start pulling him together, because everything so far has been kind of very base coaty or just a contrast. So going to try to get some depth into this paint job. All right, so I've done some highlight work here to his face and his skin, as well as to the red squiggy there on top. Along with the red down here. You'll notice that I also highlighted up next to where the scar is on his enhancement there. We're going to come back in later with a wash and then a different color for the sutures. That makes that look really fantastic. I think what I'm going to do now is a wash on all of these bone parts. And what I'm doing is not washing the whole thing. What I'm trying to do is build up some layering using the washes to give a dried out bleached bone look. So I'm going to leave the ends very this pale bone color and try to get down into the recesses and toward the bottom of the horn with this darker color. And then we'll come in later with a third color and do that as well. Now again, we're not painting a golden demon entry here. We're not painting anything like that. This is strictly tabletop standard for my army, and it's what we're really focusing on is just trying to get things accomplished, especially things that have been sitting on my paint desk for absolutely ever, getting nowhere, getting nothing done. So we've already made some fantastic progress on this guy, especially compared to what he's been for the last few months. So I'm really happy with that. And yes, you'll notice I'm like pooling the wash toward the bottom. That's on purpose. I'm trying to give it this gradient, and having it pool up down there will definitely do that. Obviously, there are far more accurate and nice looking ways of doing the bone and layering it in, but that takes hours and hours and hours. We've got 10 minutes. So I think that's, oh, there's a little tooth there. Make sure we don't miss that guy. That's all the bones. Let's move to the next color. I can feel the timer getting close, so I think I'm gonna switch back to the orange because we haven't gotten any here on the back. You can see like the little arrow there needs to be done. That day 3 is over, and here is our progress. So you can see we've got that face looking quite a bit nicer. We've got some good highlights going on there. We've got the orange hair ties going on. Yeah, and just trying to pull them together a bit. Bones are starting to look a little better. The squiggy's starting to look a little better. So definitely like measurable progress, even though it's only 10 minutes. I'm definitely frustrated with the 10 minutes. I want more time. Like the timer goes off and I'm like, I'm not done with the session yet. So definitely like exploring longer sessions later on, but I'm trying to stick to this. It is 10 minutes and it is brushes down. So that's where we're at, and we'll pick up tomorrow at day 4. Well, it's the darkest it's been so far this week. Today just kind of got away from me, and I think that that is very typical of what happens with us at our hobby time. Is, you have all these great intentions and then life happens and next thing you know it's bedtime. But I've made a commitment, I'm sticking to it, so we're gonna put 10 minutes on the clock again and see what we can get done today. Obviously we are still working on our old beast boss on foot here. So we've worked on the first 3 nights this week, but I do need to get the base done. So this is where it started when we started our project, and he does need to be glued on there, but you'll notice he is missing his basing material, and all of my works have a very similar base to them. So I do need to get this AK Interactive Sandy Desert acrylic on here because this stuff takes a long time to dry. So I need to plop that on here and then let this dry. That way tomorrow we can glue them to the base. All right, so we've got all of our acrylic medium on there, and I've even pressed the model in and taken him out and then scraped his feet back off so that we've got a good spot to glue to when this stuff is all dry. So we'll put that aside. And then we can get them glued on tomorrow. So our focus today then is going to be to get to everything on the bottom of this that we won't be able to get to when he's glued together to get him finished. Yeah, so the late night session, a little harder than the earlier in the late night sessions. Just didn't quite have the focus on what I want to do. It was kind of all over the place, but I think that actually worked out in my favor. You see there was this little strap here on his boot that I had missed earlier, and then I actually discovered like it's his belly showing. It's not a piece of leather in the middle there, so I got some green on that so that we can get that finished up. And I do really like how the highlight on his hair turned out and the little bit of silver detailing that we were able to do. So plan of action is tomorrow I want to try to hit him first thing in the morning instead of waiting so long. So it's going to be kind of a get up, grab my coffee, and like instead of scrolling the news for 10 minutes, I'm going to put 10 minutes in on him while it's daylight out and I can actually see what the heck I'm doing to do all the final little details and then glue him to the base. And then we're going to do weathering powders, and then he's actually done. So before we're done with our 7 days, we will be done with him. I think he'll be done on day 5 because today is 4. So yeah, tomorrow's 5. He'll be done on day 5 and dusted, and then we can have 2 days to work on the next thing on the workbench, which is exciting because again, this guy has been on my bench for like literally months as I've just been in this like stuck stupor of I don't know what color to paint everything. So not giving myself time to really think about it and just do it has definitely helped get him done. All right, we'll catch you tomorrow morning. All right, it is indeed the next morning, as you can tell by the sunlight coming in the window, and we are ready to do our 10 minutes of painting in the AM instead of the PM. So like I said in the closing from the last segment,
I was going to not spend 10 minutes this morning scrolling the news on my phone and instead sip my coffee while painting. I probably should have used my red squig mug, but I really do use it for my dirty paint water, so I don't want to get into the habit of actually drinking out of this thing. So let's get to work on our beast boss. I really do think we could finish him today. Most importantly, our acrylic texture paste dried so we can glue him to the base and really get an idea of the overall look. So let's head over to the bench.
All right, so we've got them glued to the base. We've got the little bit of brown on the rock down there. Did the Agrax Earthshade into the bottoms of the all the bones. Got some shade on that little green spot on his belly. And now I think we are ready to tie it all together with the last details. As always, the heavy lifting in my army is these Tamiya weathering powders. These are oil-based powders that when you put them on the model make them look incredibly aged very quickly, and you have a number of different things to do. So we're going to do some sand on them as well as some rust and soot on the weapons. We're out of time. All right, so the last bit we had done was the Tamiya Clear Red. So I use this for the wet blood stains on the weapons with a really terrible brush on purpose, and you want to kind of like stab it on there, and it gives this really cool gruesome effect. And the cool thing is the flat drying of like the contrast paint Flesh Tearers Red looks like old dried blood, and the glossiness of the Tamiya Clear Red makes it look like wet fresh blood. You got the two together and it really does a lot of heavy lifting. We also did our weathering powders. We got the soot on the blaster up there, as well as the sand color that you could see down here that's transferred to the feet and the furs and the leathers and the rocks and stuff. Helps tie it into the base. So yeah, he is well and done. And before you ask, no, I did not dip any brushes into my coffee cup.
In fact, not only is our coffee still relatively warm, I didn't even really get to drink it because I was so focused on getting these last details done within the 10 minutes. And I think that that is the genius part about this. It isn't even so much like making sure you get in 10 minutes every day. I think that if you create that kind of a routine, you're going to end up painting for more than 10 minutes, which is great. And you're going to get a little progress done. I think having that time crunch really forces you to make decisions and paint. You're not sitting there thinking about it, you're not looking at it, you're not overanalyzing it, you're not touching something up to the nth degree. Again, this is not what I would do for a competition piece, but if you're just trying to get tabletop stuff done and you're finding these roadblocks, being able to like, I just got to get paint on the model, I just got to get paint on the model, right? And just rushing, I don't even want to say rushing, but getting through those decisions quicker and having less downtime between them, I think flows better. I think it gets it done quicker. And I think the results actually speak for themselves. I'm not joking when I say this guy is done. He is completely, utterly done. He is ready to join my WA. He is ready to go on the battlefield. In fact, here's his brother, right? Here is my first beast boss on foot, which is a conversion, and I spent a lot of time on him. I've got hours and hours and hours and hours over weeks and weeks and weeks, but you put them together out on the battlefield, and I mean, look, they look like they belong to the same army. They look pretty similarly detailed and done, all things considered. Yeah, the weathering pigments and the blood and stuff like that, they really do a lot of heavy lifting. I can't stress that enough, that so much of your army can actually be done in a fashion where you're tying it together with tricks like that. And yeah, it really elevates paint jobs and minis and models. And you shouldn't poo-poo on the basics. We used contrast paint, we used washes, we used dry brushing. there's no wet blending, there's no palette, there's no airbrushing, there's nothing advanced about this. And it looks great. It looks tabletop ready. You know, again, the fact that I got this guy done in, what's today, day 5? So 50 minutes, less than an hour from when you saw him at the beginning with basically the Zenithal Prime from a spray can, along with some green skin and the purple. And that was it. That was the only thing on him. Oh no, the metal. Yeah, we did have a coat of bolt gun on the metal. That was it. And it probably took me 50 minutes to do that because I was so, like, just not really getting anywhere in working on him. Versus if I had done him 10 minutes at a time the whole time. Now, is he done? I'm going to say no. I definitely see two things I need to do. Obviously, this guy has the little grass tufts. So we're going to plop grass tufts on him too. And then his base rim is a little messed up. Going to put another coat on it to be nice like this guy. And then slap his branding on the bottom. He'll be BB2 for Beast Boss 2, and he'll be all done. So the painting work is done. So tomorrow we'll rim the base. Well, no, we'll put the tufts on first, then we'll rim the base. He will be completely done, and we'll start on the next project. So one thing I do want to do is decide what that next project is before we actually like start clocks again. And the other thing that's been sitting on my paint desk for a while is this, my Megatrax Scrapjet. Now, this is pretty darn much done, and I've actually put a lot of time into this one to make it look really good because the buggies are my favorite and I love them. But we are not at the finish line yet. You can see his eyes aren't done. His scarf needs some help. And then, yeah, we've got no highlighting on the metal yet. We've got no weathering going on. And this is what our base looks like. Now, I do not do the acrylic paste on these, on the really big bases. One, it's kind of expensive to use that much of it at once, but two, it kind of starts looking weird the bigger of a thing you put on it. So I actually have a homemade sand mixture with some glue and stuff. So that's what we'll do, is we'll put the tufts and do the base rim on the Beast Boss so that he is completely finished. And then we'll start working on this guy. We'll glue the sand onto his base, and we'll start highlighting up the metal on this and working on him. And then, because that'll be day 6, and then day 7, we can glue him to the base and do the final weathering, and he should also be done. And then I will have 2 projects finished out of my 10 minutes at a time. And specifically, the 2 projects that have been sitting on my bench the longest. So yeah, that's our plan of action for tomorrow. So maybe we'll start in the morning again. That seems to have worked. All right, it is time for day number 6 of 7 of trying this painting 10 minutes a day. We've been painting at night for the first few days, and then we painted early in the morning. And I have to tell you, it was really interesting that even though I'd only painted at night for 4 days, and I had already painted in the morning yesterday, last night I was anxious almost. Like, I felt like I was not doing something that I should be. And it was really intriguing to see how quickly that became like a routine, even though I wasn't doing it at exactly the same time. Just somehow my body already knew that, like, hey, you should be doing some painting around this time. And I hadn't been. So that was a really interesting lesson to learn. So I did not paint last night, even though I really wanted to. But now here we are the next day. And it's the middle of the day. I know it looks a little dark, but that's because it's 102 degrees outside. And yeah, sweating and the whole nine. So we're trying to keep that out as much as possible, but we've got some decent light in here. It's middle of the day. Let's put 10 minutes on the clock and see if we can't do the last little touches to our Beast Boss on foot and start on the Megatrax Scrapjet, which was our goal last night, or yesterday morning. You know what I mean. Let's give it a try.
Alright, and like I had said at the last update, I feel like he matches the Beast Boss that I already have done. We just gotta do this last couple of things. So we're gonna glue the tufts onto him, put the marking on the bottom, and then do the base rim, and I'm gonna call him complete. Alright, we're gonna start today by putting the little tufts here on our Beast Boss on foot, and then I touched up his base rim, and of course put his bottom thingy on to say what he is in my army, and he is completed. So yeah, we are going to call this guy completely 100% done. And the really great thing is, he is done the day before I would normally paint. So the whole premise of this setup was normally once a week, usually on Sunday, I would paint for about an hour. We haven't even got to that day yet, and I've done 10 minutes a day for 6 days, and this guy is absolutely complete after spending weeks on my painting bench. So I couldn't be happier with that. We also started working on our Megatrax Scrapjet this time. So while I had the same color out, I went ahead and did the second coat on the base rim for this as well. We don't have to worry about the top with the acrylic paste because, again, I've got my secret sand sauce that we put on the big bases. That is this right here, literally a bunch of dirt and rocks and sand that I have collected into a really nice bucket here that I use for that. So that will take care of that. And then on the Scrapjet itself, the only thing I did today was all of the orange was base coated a different color, so I top coated it with my Army's True color of orange. So yeah, so that is ready to go. And then on our pilot did his red eyes and threw some Seraphim sepia on his scarf, which is still drying. So come tomorrow, I think we are going to glue him in the Scrapjet, glue all of the sand on top of the base, and then glue this to the base, and then do our weathering powders. And then this will also be completed, and we will get a second thing off of our workbench.
All right, here we are starting day 7 of our Paint 10 Minutes a Day challenge. And well, we have again successfully completed our Beast Boss on foot. He is totally done. Stick him in the done pile, and we are now working on the Megatrax Scrapjet, which again was mostly painted, but we did a bunch of details on our driver here and a little bit more on this, and then we're gonna get it on the base and call this one done too. Because again, the whole premise of this thing was to like get stuff done, and that time compressibility seems to be helping out with that. So we're gonna put 10 minutes back on the clock and see if we can't finish a second project, even though we've only got 10 minutes left on the week. Let's give it a try. In fact, today's challenge doesn't even really involve much, if any, painting. Our base is basically done. We've already done the second coat on the rim there. The first one was done before we started our little adventure. And our pilot, I believe, looks pretty done. Same thing with our actual mini. What we have to do is glue on this stuff. This is the sand and rock onto the base, as well as gluing the vehicle to the base. Glue the guy in the vehicle, and then we're going to do our weathering powders, and then I believe he's all done. So we actually have kind of quite a bit of time to get through this. All right, so we've managed to glue the driver into place and glue our Scrapjet to its base, and then glue down our homemade mixture of rocks and sand. Let that dry. While that is drying, so that we can put on our grass tufts, we are going to go ahead and break out the Tamiya weathering powder, which is the same thing that we did to our Beast Boss on foot. All right, well, we're gonna finish out our stickers here. That's that. Our final timer has gone off. I did go a little bit over time. I was putting on the tufts when the timer went off, and I only had a couple left to do, so we went ahead and finished that up. But more or less makes no difference. We've put in 10 minutes a day times 7 days, and we now have 2 projects completed. Now, more importantly, these were 2 projects that have been on my workbench for absolutely ages, especially the Beast Boss on foot. There's just so many details on this guy that I was really at a loss on what color to do everything. And that time compressibility of only having 10 minutes to work on him really made me just grab a color and go. And frankly, I love the way he turned out. I think it's way better than if I had sat around really trying to think about and pick colors. So definitely, if you're finding yourself in some sort of analysis paralysis on color making decisions, try this whole 10-minute a day thing. Not only were we able to get through him, we also got our Megatrack Scrapjet done. Now again, this was mostly completed, but what we were able to do was get the base finished, get it on the base, and finish our details on the driver there. And I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Now, I will say doing bases as part of the 10-minute challenge is not the greatest of ideas. Putting the acrylic on him was fine, especially being that that was like a last step before calling it for the day, and it gave it, you know, a nice 24 hours to harden up and stuff. But doing the whole like glue and sand trick, the glue's still not dry. I got sand coming off all over me. Really, I should have done the same thing where I glued the sand on and then set this down and then just didn't touch it for a whole day. But the reality is I didn't do that, and it got a little messy. So I might have to come back in afterwards, just kind of clean up this base a little bit. But I am genuinely happy with how it turned out. I don't know what my holdup on this was, because I painted the actual Scrapjet really, really quickly, and really loved painting it and putting it together. I just couldn't seem to kind of, again, get over that finish line and get him on the base. But now he is done, which is great, because he is also part of my whole trying to get my whole Speed Freaks division done for Stillmania. So now I need to really start on that Record Truck Squig Buggy. You can go see the other videos if you want to follow along on that one. But yeah, so we got 2 projects done. But more importantly, I did learn a couple of lessons. One was it didn't take that long to establish I don't want to call it a habit, but at least a routine. I talked about earlier in the film that after 4 days, I had done a morning paint session instead of a night paint session. And even though I had already painted that morning, at around the same time at night, I felt myself like getting a little antsy or anxious even, because I wasn't doing something that I had done 4 days in a row. So it was really intriguing to see just how quickly you can program yourself into making a habit out of something. The other thing is I really found myself pining for more time. So I don't know that it's necessarily that you need to only do 10 minutes a day, as much as it's setting aside a set time of day to paint. And if you go over that amount of time, if it's available to you, then by all means roll with it. I definitely could have used some more time on at least 2 of the days where I could have, I don't know, just kind of done a little bit more, stayed a little bit longer, even if it was just 15 minutes, could have made a nice positive difference. So the next time I do this, I will not hold myself to the timer as much as to the day-to-day part of it. So let me know what you guys think. What did you think about this 7-day experience and putting in 10 minutes a day for a week? Give it a try. Let me know down in the comments below how it goes for you. Let me know, do you think, I should have tried something a little different, whether it was, like I just said, going overtime and just kind of setting a set time every day. Yeah, or just kind of anything like that. It was, again, a really intriguing experience. I learned things that I didn't quite think I was going to learn, but I was able to ultimately accomplish my goal, which was to get, again, some painting projects off of my desk that have been on there forever. That being said, I do have a lot more painting projects that have been on there forever, specifically the rest of my Beastnaga army that have just been absolutely dogged down on. One of which, well, actually a lot of which are very much the similar spot as the Beast Boss on foot was, where kind of they've got that zenithal primer and maybe an undercoat on the skin and the metal and nothing else done. So maybe what I'll do next is sit down for 60 minutes straight and see if we can't replicate this kind of result in one sitting, or if the extra time will make me paint so much slower or have, again, that analysis paralysis that I don't actually get done. That could be intriguing. If you want to see that as an upcoming video, make sure you are subscribed.
to the channel so that you don't miss that upload. Don't forget your merch at the merch store, including our The Red Ones Go Fasta artwork shirt by BenBam, as well as your Red Squid gear like the hat and, of course, the water bottle, keeping me hydrated all week long. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And yeah, let me know what you think about the 1 week challenge of painting 10 minutes a day. All right, I'm gonna go set up for that 70 or 60 minute paint challenge and see how that goes. And until then, Wargammer!